You know, I usually think I'm like an experienced packer, but we're going on a trip and I'm actually kind of fulfilling a dream for myself here. And I feel like I'm not even sure if I'm gonna manage packing for this one. I got myself secondhand a new sleeping bag, and how am I supposed to get this huge thing into maybe this small thing? This is definitely from like a different sleeping bag, from a very, very small one, and this is a very, very big one, so I'm not confident, but I'm gonna try. What I'm packing for is definitely an adventure, actually more so than I thought at that point. And I'm gonna share more later on, but so much so far. I'm packing for something I've never really done in that way. I'd say this is a success. But then I'm also packing a tent, and I also had to get a new one because the old one we had broke, and so I opted for a more lightweight one, which I'm just super glad I have my new job, which allows me to have a bit more monetary freedom. So what I'm doing here while packing is pretty much what I always do. I try to take everything I need, but nothing more. But this time, it's really challenging. But because you see what I'm packing, I think you can start to guess how this trip is gonna look like. This time I actually thought I'm gonna try pack my clothes in a packing cube. So this is compressible, but I'm not sure how it's like, if there's any compression happening here. To start fires, like we should have access to firewood, but sometimes if it's not completely dry or something, these are really helpful. But I'm like thinking about not taking all of them because that's gonna save some space and a little bit of weight. Let me think about that. Toilet paper, because I don't know how the situation is gonna be. I also have my charger for my phone and camera. This time I'm actually only taking the really small camera. This camera, I'm thinking about just keeping it in my pocket because that's also kind of the idea. Then we still have my towel. And I'm really afraid I forgot some stuff, and I haven't even packed food and snacks, and I wanna go hiking with this for a week. There you have it. And not just some kind of hiking vacation, but I want to try long distance hiking for a week. So let's see. But to conclude this section here is that I'm really, really looking forward to this because I've wanted to do something for the longest time. And I think this is kind of an entry level way to doing it because we have these shelters with fresh water and compost toilets, and we're kind of close to civilization, so we will have access to supermarkets and stuff, which means we don't need to bring along like a week's worth of food, which is amazing. But as you can see, I'm struggling with packing even with all of these advantages. I still haven't packed everything, but let's kind of put on this backpack once and see how it feels. Honestly, right now I do have to say it feels fine. It feels fine. It's big, but it's not super heavy. But we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'm gonna change the whole packing throughout the trip when it doesn't work. We'll see. Actually, yeah, I did do that. But first things first. Where are we going? Now, it might not be a surprise to you that we're taking a train. And we, by the way, is my boyfriend and me. And we're taking a train up north, over 1,000 kilometers to the north of Denmark. Well, almost all the way up north. Because the plan is to hike the rest. And this is where we woke up on our first hiking day. It's one of these shelters that we plan to sleep in almost every night. And then we started walking. So look, this is how I went into this. I mean, it's just walking, right? So we packed up all the stuff that we had, and as I said before, I bought some things that I still needed or that did break or not work for me in the last few years. And then we just walked kilometer after kilometer, and I had this route planned out previously, but I definitely did not do very much research because we are close to civilization, it's a flat landscape, and you know, one step after the other, we're moving into the right direction. That might sound a bit naive, and it maybe is, but I have experience with hiking, and I did also go on several like multiple day hikes as a child. I only ever did one 2 day hike as an adult, I think. So with this little bit of experience, I thought I really wanted to give a longer trail a chance to see how it feels to wake up and start walking again, and arrive in the evening and go to sleep and start walking again the next morning. How it feels to kind of get into the routine of hiking over a longer period of time. So we've been hiking for almost a week now, 6 days, and it's our last day. Tomorrow our train goes back. And this is a beautiful sunset that we just saw at the northernmost tip of Denmark. Now, if you know geographics really well, then you know that Greenland belongs to Denmark, so it's not actually the northernmost tip of Denmark, but like mainland Denmark or something like that. My body hurts, but it's been an amazing week. Some things went according to plan and some things not at all, but I think I'm just gonna catch you up at home with better video quality and everything. But yeah, see you there.
Næste station. Bomben. Toget standser kun ved tryk på stop-knappen.
So I am back home. We arrived back home this morning after like almost 24 hours of a train journey. The way back did take a bit longer than the way there, just because of connections and things not working out. But I promised you to give you an update, to talk about how this trip went. And I think this is going to be a valuable part because it's going to be about how it felt making this dream come true, or was it actually a dream coming true? And also kind of like the mental parts of it, but also I have a lot of pictures I maybe want to share here while talking, because as you could see, I did not take too many video clips. So I think the most important question to answer is kind of, was it the dream? Did I achieve my goal of fulfilling this dream of a long distance hike? So over the course of these 6 days, we did walk for about 100 kilometers up the coast of Denmark to the very north. So I'd say like 100 kilometers is kind of a long distance hike for me as a beginner. Of course, it's like not a Pacific Crest Trail or something you would walk on for several months without a break. Yes, we did that. I wanted to try long distance hiking and I did. But I also do want to say that we kind of failed, because twice we did take a bus once, and once we hitchhiked and we kind of skipped 10 kilometers. So these kilometers are not included, so we still did hike these 100 kilometers. We even like walked more, but the pure like hiking was 100 kilometers. And we also did take a bus and a car for some additional kilometers. So that kind of feels like a failure, because the idea then of course is to walk from like point A to point B and just walk, right? Just use your feet and your body and your strength and everything to conquer this distance. Well, because we had limited time and because I really wanted to reach the top is kind of why we made this decision. Also because it's not allowed to really wild camp in Denmark and we had to stick to these shelters. It also made more sense for us to shorten 2 of our days to be able to make it. Because honestly, I did plan this trip and I thought it would be possible, but I just did not imagine how much harder it is to walk the distance with so much luggage. And also, of course, the aspect of walking each and every day. And so blemishes and things that happen on the first day, you can't really cure them out for a week and then do the next day, but you have to walk again the next day and the day after. And so I still have some blisters and I still have some spots on my body that hurt because of this hike. And I'm actually going to talk more about this and like how much can you do to your body, how much can you ask from your body in my Patreon podcast episode that's coming out tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, and I also did talk more about like bucket list and what that means for me, like achieving something that I've wanted to do for a long time in last week's episode. So I can recommend you check it out. But back to our failure. Was it even a failure? Because I think no. And the reasons for that are that I wanted to do a long distance hike, which for me means walking every single day over a certain period of time and kind of conquering a certain distance. And we did do that. We walked every single day, we walked a lot of kilometers, and we saw a lot of different landscapes. That's also something like, that's the benefit I want to get from a long distance hike. And the other thing is like, who makes the rules, right? And I think the only right answer to that is I'm making the rules if I'm walking. No one is telling me how to do it. And as long as I'm honest with myself and other people, then there's no problem at all. Also, I do think, like in life in general right now, I'm at a point, and I did also talk more about that in my Patreon podcast, where I really do want to allow myself to sometimes like not push through with things, not finish things if it doesn't make sense. Like to stop a book midway through, to abandon a TV show, to stop a hobby, to change my mind if more facts come up, right? And that was kind of the same thing. Like we maybe could have pushed through and did all like the kilometers. Or we maybe wouldn't have reached the top. We maybe would have like illegally had to camp somewhere because we couldn't make it to the next shelter. But that wouldn't have been the wisest decision for our physical health. It wouldn't have been the wisest decision for our mental health. And it wouldn't have been the wisest decision to like just have an enjoyable trip. And so I think it was not a failure, but it was readjusting with what we had, what we knew, what we planned, and what reality showed us. But the other part of like, did it fulfill my dream is then of course, like I did tick the box on what I wanted to do, but how did it feel? Like it was amazing, it was great. And then on the other hand, also, maybe it was not exactly how I imagined it. And I think that's very normal for dreams. Like we have certain expectations and sometimes these expectations are met or not. And I think I might have had a certain expectation of freedom that wasn't exactly met. And I think it's because we still had to stick to a lot of restrictions. We had to reach the shelters. We had to go to the supermarkets. We all have to kind of go to a toilet every now and then, bring a lot of water to drink. We have our bodies that kind of restrict us. We also have to stick to a route, stick to laws. We can't camp everywhere. And then also a huge thing when you're camping outside is of course the weather. We were kind of lucky, but a bit more on that later. But so what I mean by that is just that maybe I didn't achieve the level of freedom that I hoped to feel on this trip. But that's totally fine. And it just tells me something about myself, and that is that I actually like crave freedom. And I think that is why I pursue minimalism. That is why I try to travel without luggage. That is why I try like long distance hiking and a lot of other things in my life. And that's also interesting to know. And it's going to be interesting to see how I can incorporate that into my everyday life. And then the other side of it is, of course, like, are there unexpected benefits? Like, are there things that happen that are great that I didn't even think about? And I think one part of it is my phone. Like, actually I had to change SIM cards, and then I did have no data for most days because my provider has some problems and they didn't allow me to use my SIM card outside of Germany. So, yeah. But that was actually a good thing. So this week was so intense also. And together with not actually being able to use my phone, the only time I did consume anything was kind of maps and trying to check the weather forecast if it was possible. And other than that, I was just very, very, very much in the moment. And that is something I usually do not achieve to this level, even on vacation, or even if I'm trying to do it, to be in the moment. And so this vacation was surprisingly beneficial and great when it comes to being in the moment, not thinking about work, not thinking about social media, not thinking about anything like that, but just being there and doing what's necessary, like walking the distance, but also experiencing the beautiful landscapes and everything. And together with that, I also do want to say that on this trip, for once, I really didn't focus on getting content. And I mean, you can see it, I didn't really capture that many videos, but that was also kind of the goal. I wanted to be led by what I enjoy, what I want to do, by the experience, and not by trying to get the best shot and trying to make the best video out of it. But you're still getting a video, and I do hope you enjoy it. And then another unexpected thing that happened to me regarding slow travel is that it felt very much not like slow travel. So I do think hiking, especially like hiking every single day, it's a very, very simple concept. And hiking itself is so incredibly slow, because we did realize that one day we did hitchhike, that the distance we would have maybe barely made in a day was made in 15 minutes. And so hiking is so slow. But then on the other hand, the landscape changes every few minutes sometimes. Sometimes not. Sometimes you walk through the same landscape for hours, right? But there's so many things happening. This 6 day, or it was 8 days or even 9 when you take all the traveling into it, but it felt like so much. There were so many landscapes, so many situations, so many weather conditions, so many moments that it felt very different from the usual slow traveling that we usually do, where we stay at an accommodation for a few days to also kind of see our surrounding in different days, different light, actually have some freedom of choosing when to go outside, when to go grocery shopping, things like that. And I do think both of these things have advantages and disadvantages. What I love about this kind of travel that we just did now is that it's still very inexpensive, it's still very slow and sustainable, but it's still very, very, very rich in experience if that is something you crave. So you don't need to fly to a different continent every week. You do not need to have a huge program and things to do, but just setting one foot in front of the other can show you so many things about the landscapes, about the country, about yourself. And then, as I promised, I do want to share a few moments in pictures maybe that were unexpected, beautiful, something like that. So one thing that was unexpected in a bad way was a thunderstorm. So I did say in the beginning of this video that the great thing about this trip is that we're very close to civilization, and so we always have supermarkets and we always have the infrastructure there. Well, there was one day where we were not close to civilization. And of course it was that one day out in the open, flat landscape that suddenly a thunderstorm appeared. And these are hard to forecast. They were not shown on the forecast. There was not really anything that we could have done better, but we were just suddenly hit by a thunderstorm out there. And that was a really, really scary experience, but also a lot of adrenaline. Luckily, everything went well. Not much lightning hit close to us. And afterwards, it was just a crazy experience. But things like that can happen as well. And so I do think that even though it's just walking close to civilization, you always have to know, not even we're not even in the mountains or anything like that. And still things like that can happen. Things can get dangerous. And it's a good idea to pay attention to things like that. Another thing is that I just loved the shelters we stayed at. These are just small buildings, not even buildings, structures that protect you from the weather a little bit. And they usually have a compost toilet and they're free to use for every single person. And they don't exist like that in Germany, but they do in Denmark. And that's amazing. And we use them, and I just enjoyed staying in the shelter so much more than staying on a campground. that I really want to like do some shelter vacation again, no matter if it's like long distance hiking or just for a weekend, or I don't know how, but these shelters were amazing and great, and just the birds, the weather, the deer, the other animals, it was just amazing. And then a third thing that we did experience is we went to the very tip north of Denmark. I did share a video from there earlier, but that was amazing there because you can kind of see the two oceans flowing together, like the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. And on our way back, we were hit by so much like fog, but beautiful sunset and fog and deer and a ton of mosquitoes that you can also see on the pictures. And we had to take a huge detour because the ground was wet and we just had to kind of run from the mosquitoes. It was unexpected. Our feet hurt because it was on our last day and we had blisters and everything. But it was still very beautiful and unexpected because we were thinking about like, should we even still go there or is it too much for us? So yeah, we had beautiful experiences. We have a lot of beautiful pictures and more than that, beautiful memories, but it was also a tough thing, like more tough than I thought. I thought it's just walking. I mean, it's flat landscape. It's not even the mountains, but it was tough. To wrap it up, would I do it again? Yes, I would. I don't have any like specific plans, and I maybe would do some things differently. Maybe train more or make shorter days, less kilometers, have a different approach. But most of it was great and I'm very grateful I did it. And that is actually really something that I always wanted to do, and now I tried it out and I don't feel so much FOMO anymore because I finally kind of tried it out. Even though of course every single hike is different, every single day of hiking is different, landscapes can be different wherever you are and hiking, and so there's nothing, you can never like check off anything like this on your bucket list because life is an experience and every single time it's going to be different. You can do something 100 times and it can be different every single time. So, but that was a first at long distance hiking, and I think it was a success in that way, and I would really like to know if you have ever attempted something like that, or if you have a different dream that you kind of want to fulfill for yourself, but maybe it's a bit hard, maybe it requires planning or money or something that you don't have right now, or if there's something you're actually planning right now that you've always wanted to do. So let us know down below in the comments, and I want to say thank you so much for watching this video until now. I feel good, I feel refreshed mentally, but my body still needs to recover a bit, and I do want to see how I feel about the whole thing when it's a bit more in the distance, like not so fresh as it is right now after returning today. So I will link you a video here that you can check out. I would love that very much. And I would also love it if you checked out my Patreon, as I said earlier, for the podcast and just to support me, which would mean the world. As does if you have watched the video until now. That's also really helpful. Thank you so much. I hope to see you there or in my next video. Goodbye.